Sup, everyone, and welcome to another stream. Here's the intro, okay? Here's my quick intro. About 10 days ago, I made my very first trip to San Francisco. Now, I'm repping Bangalore tonight, which is kind of my hometown. Currently, I'm in Copenhagen, though, Copenhagen, Denmark, far away from Bangalore, India. But 10 days ago, I made my very first trip to SF, and you know, it was unexpected. Let me just tell you that. Absolutely not what I expected. And of course, we also had Figma config, right? I mean, I just grabbed the first Figma thing I could see here, but a better one would be this, right? There was also Figma config, which is like you can imagine it was the literally the biggest event in the city, right? So it was at Moscone Center, which is also where Apple used to do their events in the past. Apparently has a venue size of 50,000 people. And I heard there were somewhere between 8,000 to 15,000 designers this time at Config in SF. That's a lot, right? Despite the fact that this channel is called 10K Designers, trust me, I had never actually seen 10K designers in one room, in one venue. That happened for the first time as well. But in this video, or in this stream rather, I want to talk to you about my unfiltered thoughts, right? So I don't have a script as such. I don't have a specific agenda that I'm trying to convince you of, right? I've not already made my mind and trying to convince you of a very specific agenda. There's of course good and bad, and there's also like a big, which is neither good nor bad. It's just middle, which I'm still kind of processing. But welcome everyone. Welcome to the stream. Let's get some shout outs going, okay? What's up, Neon Nebula? Oh, GM's in the chat. Amazing. Hey, Vishalika. What's up, Devanshi? Hey, Bhavna. Hey, Harish. Manvinder. What's up, man? Siddharth. Yo. Thanks. VK. Yo. Hey, Pallavi. Ananya. What's up, gang? What's up, Parth and Jay as well? So, folks, here's what I want to do, right? Since this is an unfiltered POV, it means, you know, the first question we're going to start with is how was Figma config? And if if you just met me like IRL and you asked me and we were both slightly in a hurry and you're like, oh yeah, how was config? I saw your stories. The answer would be, oh, it was good. It was big. So interesting. Had fun. So many cool things. Got some merch. Saw so many people who I saw on screen for the first time. SF. Oh, how was SF? Oh, beautiful city. Oh, the homeless thing and stuff, maybe just overhyped on Twitter. I didn't really feel that so much. Beautiful weather, all this, right? But here's the thing: you already know that. You already know that stuff, right? You roughly know what SF is. You roughly know what happened at Figma config. In fact, we can even like quickly review the sessions, right? So I'll do that in this video. I'll talk about which sessions I attended and which ones I think are worth watching that you should definitely check out on the Figma channel. I'll talk about that. But I'm not here to just tell you the same shit over, right? So I want this to not just answer the questions that you already know the answers to, but the question that you want to know the answers to. And, for the stream, let me just be upfront, make this commitment. I'm going to be honest, right? And I'm going to be unfiltered. I'm not going to think too much about, oh, this, that. I just want to be straight up, right? Because in the end, I'm processing the whole thing as well. And I think it's a nice way to just talk about it, right? Talking kind of gets it out of the mind and you can actually discuss. Hey, Rupesh. What's up, Ashwin? Brother. Hey, Amrut. What's up, man? How's health? Great, guys. So here's also the story. That config flew back on Friday, reached here on Saturday. All good Saturday. And then Sunday morning, boom, fever. Okay. I had really bad fever. And I was like, okay, theek hai, matlab must be thakaan se ho gaya hoga. Could just be, traveling so much. Could be the jet lag, right? Like tonight, for example, I slept 3.5 hours. Not because I wanted to, it's just I'm jet lagged. So like I got sleep at 7 a.m. today, which is 9 p.m. SF. And so obviously I had to wake up, right? I can't sleep the whole day. Got the stream, got meetings and stuff. But health is good, bro. Rupesh, thanks for asking. And what happened then? I got that fever. I was like, okay, um, Ghana, she was like, hey, we have a COVID test. You want to just do that? And I was feeling quite, usual fever, body ache, and all this. I was like, okay, I do the COVID test. Boom, it's COVID. So getting COVID from config, right? One day after coming back, that was not what I wanted, not expected. I thought COVID was over. I didn't know COVID was still a thing. And so I go on Twitter and I search for config COVID. And yeah, right there I see a bunch of other tweets from other people who also kind of got it. Um, Point being, did that. I slept literally 12 hours, 15 hours a day for the next 2 days. Here's the thing though. 1st July, our cohort started. And so 28th July, I'm sitting there, 29th July, and I'm like, fuck, I have a really bad fever. I can't really teach. 1st July cohort started, 3rd July is the kickoff. So I'm just like lying down in bed like this with my laptop working. Anyway, long story short, healthy now. Recovery just a little bit achy, whatever. I mean, COVID stuff, but all good. Was able to do the kickoff session for cohort 9 that happened this Wednesday. And real quick in the chat, folks from cohort 9, if you're here in the chat right now, say hi. This is maybe the first stream since all of you have joined cohort 9. And maybe I'll do this as well. Let me just post in the channel. Let me just post in the channel. Starting this stream. Join in if available. Okay. So health all good, but that's not what I'm here to discuss today. I'm here to discuss config, right? And as I said, I don't want to just tell you all the same stuff. I don't want to just, AI and all this stuff. We'll talk about it. But the first thing I'm going to do to make this a little interactive is I want your questions. And I just want to collect it first because unfiltered, so it'll kind of give some structure to follow. In the chat, I'm just about to post a link. Check this out. Okay. And I want you to just join this. And I'll tell you exactly why. Okay. I just like making these streams interactive, right? What's the point of doing a stream rather than the recorded video? Okay. Check this out. I just posted a link. I will pin this right now as well. I'll pin this in the chat. So, okay, it's blank right now, of course. But here's what I'm going to do. If you've opened that link, check it out. But what I want is questions. Questions. Yeah. I want, let's use it as a reference and let me screen share right now. Let me just show you what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing right now. Okay. So folks, real quick, I want you to just drop a comment here, please. If you got any questions, you want me to answer something about config, about link in description sends us to PocketPod. Okay, never mind about that link in description. Although team, if you guys could remove that, it's the old link. But check this link out, guys. I'll update this later. I want you to drop a comment here. What questions do you have for me? AMA. And the reason I'm doing it in Figma, I'll reveal later, but it's just easier to keep track. And folks, if you're on mobile or something and you can't open Figma, you still have a question. Here's my suggestion. Drop it in the chat, but ask somebody in the chat to post the comment for you, right? I just want to see it collected here. And this will all make sense why I'm doing it. But let's do that. Like some of the FAQs, right? The questions about AI. Prajwal, that's not a question though. So you got to ask me a question. About AI, to main kya bataun? AI is artificial intelligence. As a large language model, just kidding, but give me a question. Give me your questions here. I'll, meanwhile, switch back my screen, and we'll check this in a couple of minutes, and we'll use that to kind of guide the discussion. Okay, let's get back. So, guys, first up, let's talk about this. Let's talk about SF. I feel like this whole thing about what have you heard about SF, right? I'll tell you what. This is my first time in SF, and so before I visited, the only thing I had heard about it is, of course, it's a tech city. All the startups, all the companies, they're there. But besides that, people are like, bro, there's so much homelessness in SF. There's like fentanyl zombies on the street, like, just like out there. People breaking into stealing stuff. The cops, they can't enforce. If you steal something, you can go as long as it's $950 or below. There's needles, there's tents, this is what I heard. Let me just say. And so I went into it with a slightly negative outlook. And I feel like I was surprised. SF is nothing like that. It's actually nothing like that. It's like saying, hey, there's some shady parts in Bombay, there's some shady parts in Bangalore. Of course, there are shady parts. But here's the thing, here's the solution that we know, you and I. Just don't go there. Don't go to the shady parts. Sometimes you can't avoid it, maybe. And so you're very, very careful, but just don't go there. Another thing I've heard about SF is, oh, there's self-driving cars and all this, but there's like break-ins, right? Don't leave your laptop in your car. Your window will be broken like within 10 minutes. Even if you put something in the dicky, people will break the window, take it out. Heard about that. And bro, we parked our car. Janil and I, we rented a car. And again, maybe it's certain areas, but for most of SF, I did not see a single. Literally, I walked, we drove, saw a bunch of different areas. Did not see a single broken into car. Did not see, like, there's one or two homeless people here and there. When you're commuting, yes, you do see homeless tents, but don't you see the same in Bombay? Don't you see the slums under the flyovers and stuff? But anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this is just don't believe what you see, especially this kind of thing, right? Um, SF is maybe one of the best cities in the world, is what I realized. And I'll explain why in a bit. But don't let the negative perception get to you, right? It's very easy to dismiss and being like, Arey. But this brings me to my second point. The people of SF, what kind of mindset do they have? What exactly is it about California, right? SF is just that part. But of course, just to give you a heads up, traveled. So SF was where the city area was where config was held. Jenil and I, we stayed in Oakland, right? So we had a airport. I mean, we had a hotel. Guju owned Radisson chain, right? Hotel, Radisson franchise. We rented a car. We also went to Mountain View, Cupertino, right? Where the Apple, Google offices and all are. So got to see a lot of, let's just say California, not huge, didn't go to LA and stuff, but got to see that. Here's what I observed about people. This thing I just said, which is, why do you hear so much stuff about homelessness, drug problem, all this stuff in SF? The reason why is people who've grown up in SF, people who've been there for a couple years, they have the craziest idealism that I've ever seen. Like, and when I say idealism, right, they're idealists. They live, maybe a little bit exaggerating, they literally live on paradise on earth. SF, great access to nature, sun throughout the year, right? I'm here, it's sunny today, by the way. Let me quickly show you. This looks amazing, right? This looks like wow. But if you had just seen this 30 minutes ago, if you just saw this 30 minutes ago, it was raining. It was like really fucking raining. It's still like 15 degrees out. Point being, Scandinavian countries, beautiful, but we have good weather 6 months of the year, maybe 6 months of the year. SF has sunny days throughout the year, right? Number one. Number two, access to nature. Not even going outside the city. In the city, you got so much nature, right? So, why do I say that? When we work in these kind of jobs that are high stress, you need a way to escape. And when I say escape, I don't mean daru sutta. Although, let me talk about that second one little bit later. You need escape in the sense that you need a release, right? All this tension build up, you need a way to release it in a healthy way that is doesn't build additional dependencies and stuff, right? And so access to nature, that's really fucking good. Like, I know how people deal with stress now in SF. They just walk. They just take a walk in the forest. They just go fucking sit under a tree. They sit under the park, right? Of course, there's another thing as well that um really fucking good. I went to this club. You know what kind of club I'm talking about? Not the ding chick club, but like this club. Okay. Um, it's called Russian Hill Club, and the front is you can buy stuff, amazing stuff. $10 you just get one. Not even crazy expensive. You go in the back, lounge areas, beautiful view. They've got the manicured mini garden in the back, like this mini terraced garden in the back of this place. And I'm like, bro, if I can just walk here when I'm stressed and like with my team, with my people, like, anyway, SF, the reason it's such a high productivity place, I realized, is because you've got release. You can push yourself way harder because you know that it won't break you, that you will have ways of releasing. There's this kind of, what do I say? There's a kind of this cliche that people in SF are into running and hiking and all this. Yeah, because they have really good access to nature, like just nearby. And if you are driving, even better, right? Much more. You have things like Mount Shasta and stuff nearby, national parks and stuff. So that's the second thing I realized. People there are very. That's why they work so hard, or that's how they work so hard. Like to me, my whole life, not my whole life, but let's say most of my adult life, I've very much been inspired by Mark Zuckerberg. You guys know it, this whole social network thing. And of course, Steve Jobs, Apple, right? The first Apple device I had was a iMac, one of those blue iMacs. And maybe when we edit this video, I'll put the photo here. I had one of those blue iMacs in 2003. I don't know how the fuck I got that as a kid. Some jugaad or something, but I was I had no idea what design was. I had no idea that people even make good looking tech stuff, right? The computer I had before that was a slightly beige or dabbe wale, the Windows 98. Um, and then my second Apple device was a iPod Classic. And so, kind of, even though I didn't know about design, I feel like I've used good design, right? Like I've been a user of good design. Or let's just say, not even a user, I've been a beneficiary, benefited from these amazing products, right? Like my iPod Classic, it was a 30 GB, maybe back in 2008 or even prior, actually, maybe 2006. Beautiful device. I had an MP3 player before that, which worked great. I loved that also, nothing wrong with that. But that MP3 player could hold 70 songs because it was like 128 MB. And then I got this iPod Classic back in that day, 30 GB. Any song that you've ever listened to, you can store it, right? And so that was a little bit of my introduction of what is exactly this Apple thing. Right? What is exactly Apple? iPhones didn't exist back then, so it was very rare. Like I really was like, oh, it's so rare to be able to have an Apple product. Like who buys Apple products, right? 2007 this is. And then on the back of that iPhone, right? What would you read? You would read designed in California by Apple. And I kid you not, the first time I even heard the word California was probably on the back of an iPod. Coming back to present day, being an SF, I understand what Steve Jobs was going through, bro. I really do. In the sense that if you've grown up in SF, maybe I'm saying this too casually, but your life in some ways is like, yes, the problems that humans go through, right? Health, wealth, relationships, those still exist everywhere in the world. But if you have a car, number one, you need a car if you want to make the full use of being in the US. If you have a car, SF is the best place to be. And the optimism that I can only imagine, right? The optimism that it would instill in somebody who's grown up in that environment. Crazy, crazy optimism. Because it's not like you've not known struggle. You've known struggle, right? There's, of course, struggle. Um, Seeing this city, living in this city where other people have also done this, right? So, SF, for example, that area, of course, they've had Stanford, they've got um, a lot of these DARPA research projects, right? So DARPA was like military's arm, research arm that was looking into things like the internet or the ARPANET back then. Those folks, all based in the valley. A lot of military research, then semiconductor research, and then telecom research, and not just research, development as well, happened in Silicon Valley. And then, of course, after after the chip, after, of course, not just that, the whole countercultural movement, LSD, anti-war sentiment, the tune in, turn off, drop out, very Californian ideology. And so being there, I mean, the first tweet I made after I reached SF was finally reached this thing. What a beautiful city, Cupertino. I regret not coming here earlier. I regret not coming here sooner. I've been designing for 12 years. The first time I used an Apple product was 20 years ago. I regret not coming here sooner. It's good. It's fucking amazing. Um, and this brings me to my next point, which is let's take a short break on this and let's look at the comments. I want to see where we're going to go after this. Okay, so let me open this back up. Oh, nice. We have some good questions. Oh, we have a good number of questions. Let me go through these now. Let me go through these. I don't know why I do this. Literally adjusting the corner radius on live. Let's make this 32. Let's move this here. Yeah, that's lined. Kinda. Okay. Let's look at this, right? What are people talking about? What happens if everyone opts out of, so okay, AI? They say I can take job. Okay, AI. Why you chose to visit config that are watching virtual? Good question, Anish. My main reason was I watched config virtual last time. And in reality, I maybe watched 20 minutes of some sessions where before I was like, Arey, matlab, I don't really want to watch this. Not really interested. So why I chose to go to SF is literally think about this. In the whole world, is there any other event where 10,000 designers from all over the world are in one place, from all over the world in one place, and they are product designers at pretty much every tech company you can hear of? So let me give you an example, right? Indian example. I met the head of design at Razorpay. I met the head of design at Grow. I met the um, I know the head of design of Swiggy was there. Didn't run into him though. I know the head of design at Cred was there. Also didn't run into him. Also, Jenny did run into him in the washroom and it was a bit weird or whatever. Um, lot more that I hadn't. And one thing that really surprised me as well is the master students, right? Indian master students who've gone to the US to do HCI or those kinds of fields. A lot of them flew to SF, right? Because the ones who graduated are looking for jobs, and you're right about this, right? Networking for them, it was a big deal. But what I did not expect is they knew about me. Not to say this in a weird way, but they're like, hey, Abhinav. I'm like, yo, what's up? And they're like, oh, I've seen your video 4 years ago. And then, I was making my master's decision and I saw that. Um, Really crazy for me to see that. I did not expect it at all. Um, but met at least 10 to 20, maybe more Indian students working, doing HCI or just graduated from HCI related programs. And they're all like, yeah, we've seen your videos. And so, shock for me. That was one. Besides that, other designers, right? So, not Indian. Speak to them. I'm like, hey, what's up? Introduce and all this. And they're like, oh, yeah, 10K designers. Heard about that somewhere. Like, you guys do a cohort or something like that? Like, I've seen some stuff on Twitter and I'm like, yo, so you're telling me you're a designer, you're in Poland, you're a designer, you live in London, you're a designer, you live in North Carolina, and you've seen 10K designers? Even if it's just for a second, right? Even if it's just for a couple minutes. Side note, those of you here from 10K, just want to let you know people are noticing. Like, people see your work. It's not, I know likes, retweets, that's what's visible. In fact, likes are not even visible now, only to yourself on Twitter. But I want to assure you, people are noticing, right? And so if you feel like nothing is happening, it just means you're early in the process. Not that you are bad or that it's not working out. It just means you're early in the process, right? And there is a certain threshold that you will cross, after which people are like, people will DM you saying, hey, I've seen your work from last 3 months, last 1 year. And you'll be like, bro, you should have messaged me a year ago. That would have been really good encouragement. But anyway, my point to all of you, post your work online, right? People are noticing for sure. These kind of algorithmic kind of feeds, these algorithmic places that we live in, they seem very ephemeral, right? Like they're just phone pe hain or whatever, but they're very real. Like Twitter is a place. Twitter's not an app, it's a place. YouTube, this right here, you're not on a website, you're in a place right now, right? Really think about that. And being there in California, another thing I realized, you know, funny thing, Ghana was like, when you were at the Apple Park in Cupertino, did your iPhone know it was home? Did your iPhone know it was that's where it was designed? Funny, but when you're there, you realize, bro, all the shit that we use, these guys made it. The internet was made in California, right? You're on the internet, you're using a Californian product right now. YouTube, whoa, YouTube made in California. Um, I don't think I need to go any further, but Facebook, Twitter, whatever you name it, roots in California, right? So crazy, right? So for me, the reason why I went, excuse to visit, number one. And now after doing that, I'm like, wait, I think I need more excuses to visit, maybe next year and multiple years or whatever. But that's my main reason. Um, let's come back here. Okay, what else people talking about? We should plan a community to config APAC next year. A good idea. We should do it. In fact, I really want to. And so I didn't even know APAC config was happening. I heard about it because, a bunch of 10K folks went there, a bunch of mentors, I saw their photos. But yeah, we should do a field trip of some sort to Singapore next year. We'll figure that out. Okay. Figma gets integrated with Vision OS. It'll be killer, but the main thing, Bhavat, right now is Vision OS device nahi aaya hai, right? So without a device right now, hard to say. New tools in the latest Figma, we'll talk about this. Config happened what now? Like updates all over. I'll talk about that. Okay, so let me do this. Okay, what is this config all about? Introduction of AI into Figma. So config, this is the third config, right? So config number 3. First config nobody heard about. Maybe it was because it was during COVID. Config 2, which happened last year. This is like their annual conference where they do product releases. In the same way, Apple does keynotes, Google does keynotes. They have this annual event that they do. In fact, Airbnb now also, they have this culture now where they do these releases. And so the seasonality thing. So config is their annual conference where they announce stuff, right? They announce their events and they have talks. But let's zoom into config for a sec. Okay. I'm going to open up the config talks and I'm going to walk you through a little bit to tell you what happened. I'm sure maybe you've seen a little bit here and there together, but let me give you my POV. So let's go to Safari. Safari. Hmm. You guys can see this. Okay, let me switch to Safari. Oh no. Give me a sec, guys. Let me get Safari up here, okay? Hmm. So let me open Figma. And I think by now, all talks have been uploaded. So here's what happened, okay? Okay, they're still uploading 11 hours ago. Starts over here. So if you quickly want to know what happened at config, I think you can just watch these mini videos. This pretty much just gives you a quick recap of what happened. I'll give you my recap though. Figma slides. So now there's a third Figma product. Figma, Figjam, now Figma slides. Cool one. Okay. All the launches, you should probably watch this if you want to know. Code Connect, cool, but I don't want to talk about this too much right now. I don't work so much with developers at the moment. Dev mode, very interesting fact, by the way, they mentioned at config. Dev mode, the feature, was much more difficult to build. Like the amount of effort needed to build dev mode was more than the effort needed to build Figjam. Can you believe that, guys? Figjam, the whole Figjam, was as much effort to build or less effort to build than dev mode. So, just a small note on building products, right? Like, as a user, we perceive things in a certain way, but there's actually a different way that people inside perceive it. And usually that involves things like knowing these trade offs, knowing what is possible and not, like knowing the real cost of adding something, of implementing something, of creating something new. Okay, side note, okay. Now, Figma AI, I think we'll talk specifically about AI in just a bit. I have a certain mental model that I've developed over the last since since ChatGPT came out, but now I'm really tuning in there. I'll talk about AI altogether at once. But let me talk about the talks. Okay, so if you did not attend config and you're like, I want to watch what are the coolest people, what are the coolest talks that I should definitely check out. I didn't watch all of these, by the way, right? I think one of the feelings I had when I was there in this room of, um, you know what? One of the feelings that I had in this room, one sec, I want to show you something. Okay, I'm going to put it here. The feeling that I had in that room of designers, rooms of designers, 10,000 of them, is like I can watch the videos later as well, but I can't meet these people again. And so, whenever I had that choice of should I attend a session or should I just spend more time walking around and maybe somebody will come up and say something, or maybe I will see someone interesting and just start a conversation, right? And I think that was cool. Like, that's the unplanned, unexpected part. But then I think that's the kind of value, right, of actually being there. And so let me show you a few things. I'm going to add it to this Figjam right now. Number one, here's the config venue. Okay, huge place. Number two, let me show you the crowd at config. Crowd at config. Guys, this hall alone can hold 50,000 people, and you're just seeing one slice of it. There were like 8 of these screens. So, never seen these many designers in one place. We had this wall, like a real Figjam wall. Figjam is like maybe one of my favorite products. And so I loved seeing this here. If you can see this, you see this hello from 10K. I was maybe so we got there to pick up our badges and we asked the guy, we said, what time should we get here tomorrow? And he said, And we're like, we're gonna be driving, so we need to look for parking. And he's like, I think you should reach here at 7 a.m. And so we did. We were there 7 a.m. We were literally one of the first people to walk in. And so I was maybe one of the first two or three people to put something on the config wall. You can see everything is blank. Later, this fills up. Um, okay. And the crazy part, okay, I'll come back to my story in just a sec. Maybe just one or two more things I want to show. Okay, actually, that's enough for now. And so here's the talks that I went to. And here's what I think is worth watching. Back to Safari. Didn't watch this. Perplexity.ai, right? Did not watch this. How we redesigned, didn't watch this. Didn't watch most of these things. Although maybe I will later. This one. If I had to pick just one, right? You're here, you're watching this, you're like, you know, just give me one. Give me one that I should start with. Or if I've not watched any of these, I don't have the time to spend 20 minutes for lunch, for dinner. I want to sit with one of these videos. What should I watch? Guys, you have to watch this. Config 2024, a look inside teenage engineering. If, weird Figma logo, if you watch only one video from config, right? Of course, you're watching this one right now. You can see this on top here. But if you were to watch just one official video from config, it needs to be this one, in my opinion. Because Jesper, who's the CEO and head of design at Teenage Engineering, also chief design officer at Rabbit. Rabbit is the wearable, not the wearable, the red AI device. You guys have seen that. I think we've talked about it on stream as well. You look up Jesper on YouTube, you will find like no interviews, right? So this guy, pretty much a ghost. No interviews of him on YouTube. I found like 2-3 minute clips, but that's about it. And those were even from like 10-20 years ago. You got to watch this guy. And the reason I resonated, maybe I can't go fully into it today, but teenage engineering, for those of you who um, might not be familiar, are probably the world's best physical product designers, right? So tech products, and when I say tech, it's just electronics, probably the best design in the world. Okay. And so these guys literally top 1%, right? Top of their game. They've done collabs with Virgil Abloh, right? This is a boombox they did. They've done a collab with Kanye West, right? Um, the I don't think it's this one, but the first stem player. So the Yeezy stem player. You guys have seen the soft Yeezy stem player, right? This one. The first Yeezy stem player was actually done by Teenage Engineering. And this is what it looked like. The founder, Jesper, he is also, or in the past, was also the founder of Acne Studios. Do you guys know Acne Studios? Probably one of the coolest streetwear brands I know of. Okay. And some nice design inspo while we're at it. He founded this. He was one of the founders. And the short story on this is we wanted to make good jeans that we could give to our friends. And so we started Acne. Think about that, guys. That's pretty much Jesper's philosophy summed up, which is you want to make good products. You have to make products for yourself first, then for your friends, and then the rest of the world. Again, let me just tell you this. You probably can't survive in the whole world like this. Um, you probably can't work in corporate environments with this kind of mindset, right? You need to be a little bit more of a team player. But watching this will tell you, or it'll show you, this mindset and how he lives this. So, for example, one of the things he mentions is currently the product that they are working on. They're working on an organ, right? The musical instrument, organ. And what's the design process for an organ, right? If you think about it, musical instrument. Well, let's talk to some organ players. Let's understand the history of the organ. Let's buy some organs and use them. Let's do some user research sessions, bring in organ players, understand their lifestyle, understand their practice sessions, observe them, record them, all of this. And I'm sure they do that, okay? But when asked, what's your design process for that? You know what he said? He says, for the last 5 years, if I'm remembering correctly, for the last 5 years, I've been learning to play the organ. And so every night I spend 2 to 3 hours learning how to play. And then after I finish learning, and I think he said 5 years, I don't remember, but for a couple years now, he's been learning to play the organ a couple hours a night. And he's like, when I'm done learning how to play it, I will fully understand what an organ is. And then we will design our organ. That's a rare POV, right? The reason I bring that up to you is I want to talk about this word taste. And maybe I'll um, switch back camera for a sec. How many of you heard about this before? Taste, which is, the AI question when you ask, some experienced designers will tell you this: hey, taste and craft has never been more important. Taste and craft, right? You'll hear these words. How many of you have already heard this before? Somewhere here and there, conversations, Twitter, somebody told you about this. How many of you heard this sentence? Taste and craft are really important. So moving forward as a designer, as AI does a lot of the low level or like the easily automatable tasks, what becomes even more important is the taste of a designer. What really becomes important is the craft of their design. No better video to understand taste and craft and how you can live taste and craft, right? Not just understand from a language or theoretical perspective, not just understand the definition. You want to understand how do you live taste and craft? How do you design your entire life around taste and craft? And what does that look like? You need to watch Jesper's video, okay? And here's what it comes down to. As a designer, a lot of you have this question about AI. And let me tell you this: AI is a boogeyman. What do I mean by that? It's a boogeyman because the word AI means different things to different people, right? For many people, AI is just a catch all term for um, automation. For many, it's just a catch all term for technology that is uncomfortably on a trajectory and kya hone wala hai. For many, AI is a catch all term from movies they watch, right? So it's a boogeyman in some way. Like, कैसे डराते हैं बच्चों को, वो boogeyman आ जाएगा. Who knows what a boogeyman is? You think everybody who uses the word boogeyman is talking about the same boogeyman? No, they're just using the word boogeyman. It's a little similar with AI, right? So that's number one. But what I want to tell you, taste and craft becoming even more important, I could not think of a better advice to give people when it comes to AI. And let me give you my perspective on this. Taste. As a designer, if you're being hired, right? The reason I'm talking about hired is you want to get paid for designing, right? Even first you start designing for yourself, then you start spending hours on design. Then one day you realize, bro, the whole day I spent designing today. Then you realize, wait, this whole weekend kahan chala gaya? I was just designing. And then you realize, bro, my entire work week is design. And by the way, that's nothing special, right? Which is um, designers today in the industry, right? A lot of you here want to work at these amazing teams. You want to be a full time designer and stuff. You have to understand people who are full time designers work on design every single day. They work on design minimum 7 days, 7 hours a day, 40 hours a week, minimum, but usually 10 to 12 hours a day, 60 hours a week, they work on design. If you want to be in a design role, do you have what it takes to design for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, maybe for the rest of your life? Difficult question to answer. So let's leave the rest of your life part. Do you have today what it takes? Kal, if tomorrow a company gives you a job and it's how much you wanted to earn, will you have the ability to work that many hours on design? Because here's the thing, when you look at these job postings on LinkedIn and there are 800 applicants, 1,200 applicants, I know this because I had conversations with people who use LinkedIn to hire and they've told me, we can't hire from YouTube platforms. We can't hire from YouTube platforms. Why? Or not YouTube platforms, sorry. We can't hire from LinkedIn and open platforms. And I said, why? They're like, we get 800 and 1,200 applications. I was like, okay, and I'm sure you find good people, right? What's the problem? They are like, most of these people are those who know Figma. And by that, they are students who learned Figma 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago. हाँ मैंने कॉलेज में एक बार यूज तो किया था स्लाइड्स बनाने के लिए. And now they're like, what should I do in my life? And they're like, well, कोडिंग के लिए तो आई नीड टेक्निकल एबिलिटी. और मैं देखा है मेरे भैया दीदी कितना डीएसए एंड ऑल दिस करते हैं. वो डिज़ाइन अच्छी चीज़ लग रही है. वो फिग्मा यूज़ करते हैं. फिग्मा तो मैंने भी यूज़ किया हुआ है. They go hit apply. And let me go one step further. They have a Chrome extension that auto applies to a job in the first 10 minutes of when it's posted. And so when you, a real designer, and again, let me not use that word real designer, right? You as somebody who spends your entire days and weeks designing, right? That's maybe the definition I want to use when I say real designer, right? Your full-time job is design. Whether you have a job or not, you're spending all your time designing. All your work hours are spending designing. That's how I define you can be a designer in the industry. Now, you might see these job postings and like, I'm so demotivated because within 10 minutes, there are 200 applications. So what's the point? Point is you should still apply because most of these people are just bots, right? Or botting. Outside of that, though, you're right. There's actually little to no point applying because very likely, let me give you a straight up example. Let's say you are an excellent designer. Maybe you're from 10K, maybe not. You worked actually really hard on your project. Um, you worked on a full website. You worked on apps. You worked on, let's say you are 1 year mark, okay? And maybe you've done 2 projects or 3 projects, right? That's maybe minimum these days. 2 to 3 projects you need to have worked on to even expect that I can now get a job, right? That's now done. When on LinkedIn you apply, you actually might have the skills to get in. You might have exactly the skills they're looking for because hey, not everybody is looking for a senior designer. Let me tell you this. A agency owner I spoke to, and this agency owner, they work for international client. They do like $20,000, $30,000 website projects, right? So good one. They said, we're trying to hire from India. We're trying to hire design. Let me not reveal too much details. I don't want to this thing, but they said we want somebody who has good visuals. Usually, that also means they have good taste, which is, do they have a high bar for what they consider good? Here's the thing, no. If you copy from average, you're going to be less than average. If you copy from great, you're going to be good. If you copy from good, you're going to be average. But if you copy from average, you're going to be below average. If you copy or use below average references as your inspiration, you're going to be on the floor. Okay. So this guy, I spoke to him and he said 1 to 3 years of experience is what we're looking for. Good visuals, remote. Without getting into all the details, he said, we found people, but they all want 20 lakhs per annum. Listen to that, guys. 1 to 3 years experience, people with good visuals. Either they're working in a startup and so not available, they don't want to work for agencies. Despite the agency, they're willing to pay. They're willing to pay 10 lakhs per annum, 12, 15 lakhs per annum for 0 to 3 years. Not all, by the way, but the person I'm talking about, they're willing to pay. But they said, the good people we find, in that range who have good visuals, they have options. So they maybe started a small agency thing or they're freelancing. And so we have a good discussion. And then they're like, yeah, I want 20 lakhs per annum. Because they're like, agar main khud apne aap, by myself, just with freelancing, I'm already making maybe 10 lakhs per annum, right? And what is 10 lakhs per annum? It's like, again, guys, let's not get too specific on the numbers. Point being, he's like, I just can't hire. मेरे रेंज में ही नहीं है लोग एंड जो रेंज में है वो ऐसे लोग हैं जो फिग्मा नहीं आता उन्हें डिज़ाइन प्रिंसिपल्स नहीं पता दे डोंट नो हायरार्की कॉम्पोजिशन वाइट स्पेस all of this stuff. So coming back to my point, what we were talking about is taste and craft. Taste is your ability to find and align yourself to the best work in the world. Guys, do not settle for less than the best when you are looking at inspiration. Do not settle for less than the best, right? And of course, when I say this, I'm saying to be a little bit more practical. Don't just go for dribble and all this. See, we'll go to dribble. Kya karenge? What do designers do? They'll go to dribble, they go to Behance. They see the same thing that everybody else sees. Most of these projects are conceptual, so they don't know if it'll actually work. So they're in between like this. Um, or they're going to check out Linear, Discord, Slack, Notion, and they're going to look at this for reference. Guys, everybody's looking at these same sites for reference. You want rare references. That's what it means to have taste. You want to find essay references that nobody has heard of. That you're like, oh wow, I can't believe this shit exists. Like teenage engineering. If you've never heard about it, I would say spend an hour or two looking into what has teenage engineering been doing for the last 20 years. I think they've been around for maybe 15 or 17 years or something like that. What have they been doing? They've been doing a lot, and not just hardware, because they also develop the custom software that runs on this. For that software, they also do the interface, which also means all the animations, all the visuals, everything, right? Maybe if you watch this video, if they've edited it, they might even show screenshots. You want to find rare references. Do not look at inspiration at the same things other people are looking at. And taste, of course, goes beyond references alone, right? It also goes into what do you consider good design. And coming back to SF versus Bangalore thing, we're in Bangalore. Bangalore is a great city, right? I would at someday move back to Bangalore, like letting you know. But SF, if you're born in SF, I realize you automatically have this much taste. Versus in India, to get to this taste, you have to actually work towards it because it's not so easily accessible. You can't just look outside and be inspired, right? Sometimes you can. Uh, you want access to nature, you want to be inspired by nature. Well, travel 90 minutes outside the city, making it through traffic, and then you can do it. You can't walk in within 3 minutes, you're in nature, right? Point being, taste is something that builds up over time through your entire life, not just through your work, but your personal life as well. So, for example, let's take a side one, which is fashion, right? So, like, let's say clothes, your t shirts, whatever you wear, your dresses, and so on. I know that all of us, when we were younger, our parents just decide. And that's not true just for fashion and what we wear. It's true for a lot of things. Our parents just decide. And so a lot of times our taste is kind of locked into what our parents' taste was. But you want to be a designer, your parents are not designers. Well, you gotta work on building your taste. How do you do it? Rare references, right? So coming back to um, the screen share, I just showed you this. How many of you, I think a lot of you here probably never heard of Acne, although they've been around maybe for more than a decade. In fact, I've been to their store as well in Copenhagen. I was surprised to see him, right? I know that, I'll give you an example, right? This t shirt, 1900 DKK, that's 20,000 rupees. Guys, this t shirt is 20,000 rupees. I don't think I'm going to buy this. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to buy this. right? So I know I'm not going to consume this as a t-shirt. But what stops me from consuming this as a viewer? कुछ तो होगा इसमें, right? That they're selling it for this much. It might be a mystery to you. Why is it this much? Let that mystery, right? Your interest, your intuition, let it guide you. What is so good about this? And you might not get the answer, but are you at least trying? So let me show you, okay? I mean, I'm seeing this for the first time too. I'm sure a good part of this is the quality, right? So organically grown cotton. 20,000 guys, yeah, I mean 1900 DKK to INR, 23,000 in fact. You might not buy this, but hey, can you consume this? Which is, I'm sure one of the reasons why they cost this much is the quality must be fucking brilliant, right? So, um, organically grown all this, but how is that a differentiator? We don't know. But here's the thing, एक बार साइट पे आके एक प्रोडक्ट देखने से nothing happens, right? You have to do this every single day for hours and do that for years, and one day you will realize, bhai, I have excellent taste. And you know how you'll realize? Other people will tell you, like, bro, how do you find all this? Like, how do you know all this? Like, where do you come across all this? And you'll be like, it just comes naturally to me, or you won't have an answer because you don't know, right? Or let me, since we're talking fashion, let me show you another one, right? This one everybody's heard of, Balenciaga. I'm gonna go to men. Let's look at some products, okay? And you don't have to just come here for website inspo, right? In the end, somebody designed this. Somebody actually took intentional. Hey, that's Copenhagen. It's Copenhagen. Somebody actually took a decision to make it this way. So let's just do this together for a sec. I'm going to say discover. How do I see all products? Nah. Let's go to hoodies, okay? Let's go something specific. So what am I looking for? Hoodie. All products. I'm going to make a very strong point here, okay? I'll open this. Guys, can we look at this hoodie for a sec? You here with me? 4 sizes. This hoodie. This one. It costs 930 euros, right? And here's why I talked about price first. Why didn't I talk about design first? I talked about price first. Because in some ways, this comes to us naturally as Indians. Right? We are a little bit more price sensitive than maybe Western world, and valid reasons why, right? But guys, $930. I mean euros. 930 euros to INR. This Balenciaga hoodie is 85,000 Indian rupees. Now, here's where most people get stuck. They're going to look at this, be like, अरे भाई ये क्या है? ओए. And then they close this tab and they go buy something on Myntra. No problem with that. But guys, the point here, we're not shopping here. We're trying to build our design intuition. Actually, not even that. We're trying to build our taste. And taste means you don't just look at things you like. You try to understand what do you like and why do you like it? What do you not like and why do you not like it? This, I don't want to come here with a pre-decided opinion कि ये खराब है, Balenciaga तो ये करता है, वो this. I want to come here with an open mind and say, can I understand something about this hoodie? Because clearly somebody out there has bought this or will buy this or has bought this. And this is the importance of following your curiosity. What are you curious about? What I would be curious about, of course, this is not the first time, but when I first saw it, when I first saw Balenciaga products, I was like, I want to understand the culture. Because किस culture में, which culture is this normal in? There must be a culture out there. And what is culture? It's a certain way. society, certain way people operate. In which culture is this normal? To me, this is not normal, right? I This is not normal, but in some culture, this is normal. And so, if I don't know what that is, it means I don't understand the people in that culture, which means there is a gap in my understanding of the world. Now, when you are confronted with a gap, two responses you can have. One is you can say, भाई छोड़ दो ये, मतलब टाइम नहीं है मेरे पास, let's go back, let's do what we were doing. Or the second, you can be like, let me go one step further, right? Explore your curiosity. Let your curiosity be the in the driver's seat taking you forward. So next thing you might do is, okay, let me understand the culture. How do I do this? Maybe I'll start on Wikipedia, right? Where did this start? Kya tha iska culture? What is the exact thing? And then I realize, yo, founded in 1919. So this brand that is making these distressed, almost torn hoodies, right? In fact, bruh, one sec, bruh moment, bro, who the fuck came on this hoodie, bro? Who did that? And why is Balenciaga selling it? I want to understand. That's curiosity. Nobody needs to tell you, right? If you're curious, you need to follow it, because the things you are curious about, not everybody is curious about the same things. And that's what makes taste like a very rare thing. Like everybody has a different taste because they have different curiosities and they allow themselves to follow different things. And so if I were to read this and I'm like, yo, 1919, so this brand is 100 years old. Okay, I mean, there's something special about that. Like, I don't know so many 100-year-old brands. Then I read here, the Spanish royal family and aristocracy wore his designs, right? Cristobal Balenciaga. And so I'm like, okay, suddenly I have a little bit of understanding. So I'm like, okay, so maybe this is again a hypothesis. Maybe the reason they've been able to reach this price and are now selling it for 930 is because of the status it gives you, in the sense that whether directly or subconsciously or whatever, you feel like you are a king when you're wearing this, because you know that in the lineage of this brand, in the history of this brand, there was somebody 100 years ago who was the king of Spain who was wearing Balenciaga. Now, yeah, the king of Spain was not wearing this cum hoodie. I should not call it that. The king of Spain was not wearing this 3B stencil hoodie, medium fit in black, but he was wearing Balenciaga, right? And so, guys, my point being, I think we'll stop this particular train of thought here. My point being, the world is richer in details than we realize it is. And if you're cutting yourself off from this richness in detail, you're cutting yourself off from some of the core experiences of what it's like to be born today. If you were born in 1980 or whatever, you would also hear about Balenciaga, right? In fact, your parents, if they were working or if they were living in some of these countries, they would know Balenciaga, right? So you would ask your parents, hey, Balenciaga आपके टाइम का ब्रांड है, आप पहनते थे Balenciaga, कौन पहनता था, आप जानते हो कोई जो पहनता था Balenciaga? Like, you would have those conversations. Of course, not likely, but look at this. Here's where it gets a little murky. Then now, believe that their continued activity during, in fact, now you might realize, hey, okay, here's the thing, right? What should I do next? पढ़ लिया ये. Where does your curiosity let you go? Are you suppressing your curiosity or are you letting your curiosity driver seat mein, right? So I know that there is a movie on this. I've seen it on TikTok, thode clips idhar udhar. Now suddenly I'm making connections to things I have already seen before, to some, yeah, I remember seeing something about this. So then I'm going to be like, Cristobal Balenciaga movie. Oh, it's not a movie, it's a TV series. And now I'm not going to go watch it, but I'll probably watch the trailer now. Okay. Or the other thing I might realize is, hey, I want to read a book about this. Like, bro, like this is so confusing. Like, forget Balenciaga. I'm surprised that this category exists. That yes, you could buy a t-shirt or a hoodie for commodity prices, but there are people who will specifically buy it here. So what's it all about? And you might read a book. So let me give you an example. So you might get a book and you're like, bro, fuck, I wanna go through this. And then as you read it, you're like, bro, this is a little bit too intense. Like I've only read it like up to that much, right? Where the bookmark is. And you're like, okay, maybe this is a little bit too intense. But I want this on my shelf because if I was curious about it once, I'm gonna be curious about it again. And so next time I'm curious about it, I don't want to just what if in my mind. I want to go read something about it. And so I'm going to read this book. And so a question people have, for example, is where do you find books to read? I don't have an answer, right? Um, okay. Anyways, making sense, guys. I know I'm a little bit getting into rant mode, but you guys making sense? Yeah. Making sense why, what exactly this thing called taste is? Making sense what exactly it means to develop your taste? Maybe making sense why should you have good taste in the first place? Yeah. Because to put it in very practical terms, if if somebody is hiring you for design, they want you to have better taste than them. Imagine a non designer hiring you. And imagine if if they have better taste than you as a designer, don't you think they're going to feel, as a designer, shouldn't you know this? Why am I telling you this? Shouldn't you know this? Aren't designers expected to know this or be interested in this? How can me as a non designer have better taste than you as a designer? You understand that? Is that a simple way to understand? Yeah. So, guys, again, taste is important. Why is it important? Now, coming to the AI question, why in the AI age is taste even more important? It's because if, let's say, something like ChatGPT, right, like generative stuff, if you don't know something exists, how can you ask an AI to generate it? Going one step further, you ask AI to generate something and it generates you something, right? Let's say, imagine 2 years from now, it's really good, the generative AI for UI or something. It generates something for you. How are you going to say whether this is good, bad, how bad, if you don't have good taste? The AI has to work to meet your standard. If it doesn't meet your standard, what do? You try again. You're like, bro, what the fuck is this? This is not good. I want you to do it again. You'll try a different prompt. You'll try tweaking some stuff. And or you'll give it some links, you'll give it some references, and you'll say try again. And you will keep doing that. Maybe you will spend 8 hours and then you finally get it to do something and you're like, wow, I've done it. I finally got the output I was looking for. That is what taste looks like. But somebody without taste, the AI types something, it shows them a result. Now this person doesn't know good from bad. They're going to be like, ye to best cheese hai. Right? They're going to see this and they're going to think it's amazing. But the minute they take this to somebody who has good taste, or maybe it's a client who's hired you to make really good designs, or maybe it's your head of design, you take it to them and they're going to be like, bro, I mean, I'm a little disappointed. You think this is good? Why do you think this is good? Wait, let me show you the real shit. And then they will show you and they will introduce you to their taste. And then you will realize, fuck, bhai, I mean, I should have known this. Like, why didn't I know that? You guys understand? Making sense? Yeah. Taste is important as a designer. I hope I've made that clear. Now, let's come back to Figjam. Guys, by the way, if you're watching this, you're enjoying so far, I would really appreciate if you could leave a thumbs up on this video. Please, guys, let's at least get the number, no? Let's get the same number of thumbs ups as we have people watching this. Yeah. Now, guys, I know I take a lot of these detours, right? But this is what we were talking about. I want you to watch this video for sure. Okay. Just search for this. But what we were talking about is what should I check out at Figma config? So I haven't watched all of these, obviously. I'll just give you some. If you can just watch one, you should watch the Jesper Wala conf video. Yeah. If you're really interested in fonts and like things like if you're interested in things like retro fonts and how does it happen? Like what was the history of retro fonts? Like, can I make a pixel retro font today? You should watch this. This guy had a really good talk, and I did attend this one. If you want to find ki bhai, I want some inspiration. I want some inspiration of somebody's story who tells me about the things they tried, the things they failed at, and then the hero's journey. They went through struggle and then they came out of the other end and then they failed again, but now you know they are figuring it out, right? You want that positive optimism. I was just watching Matt's video, unlocking opportunities, building your brand with side projects. It's Matt's story, right? I know even if you're not interested in side projects, it's his story of what did he do, very interesting things he tried. So Matt, for example, he started designing just like me in the iOS 6 days, or like let's just say pre iOS 7 days when apps was skeuomorphic, right? So he's got a bunch of interesting visuals from his old work, but very nice story. I met Matt as well. Really nice guy. He's of course he had heard of 10K designers. Um, Maybe we'll do a collab at some point, but right now that's not the first. That's not the top thing that's on my mind. Okay, that's cool. Um, these not really seen this, right? If anything looks interesting to you, again, curiosity, follow your curiosity, whatever looks good to you. But one more recommendation, if I had to make, I would say this one: building a human future with robots. Now, this is something that's outside of UI, UX, outside of screens. This guy, Jason, I think he's based in Texas. I mean, you can tell with the hat, cowboy vibes. He has a 3D printing a 3D printing construction company, and his talk is about the design process for a house. What is the traditional one like? What are the challenges? The problem is affordability in the US. Like houses minimum in the US are like 300K USD. He talks about how can we build an affordable housing through 3D printing. How exactly does that change the process? And the reason I think you might find this interesting is it's not exactly AI, although yes, they are using AI in the software that they're building, right? The custom construction software. He's talking about the idea of automation, which is the negative view to look at this is, oh, you're taking away the jobs of architects and construction workers and all this. But the optimistic view, right? Remember, guys, the Californian view is that of an optimist. And when I say optimist, evergreen, perennial optimist 365 days a year. His view is that there's a lot that we could never build before, designs that were never possible that are now possible because we've got these 3D printing cement robots. And so, very interesting talk. I think if that sounded interesting to you, I think you should watch this. Besides that, um, I don't want to give too many recommendations, but a last one, if I had to, I would definitely say Imran, right? So this one, which is looking beyond screens. The kinds of recommendations I'm giving you guys are not really very practical type, like, kal main implement karke seekh jaun ye nayi feature and all this. It's more of perspective. Because if you remember the three things I talked about, taste, what was it? Taste, craft, and in fact, the third one is perspective. How many perspectives do you have? Do you have your you have your own perspective, of course, but can you have other people's perspective? Can you have more perspectives? Can you have the perspective of the person who has a Acne Studios wardrobe, right? Can you just understand them even if you don't fully want to be them? Can you still understand them? That's perspective. That's understanding other human beings. Yes, there are commonalities within us, right? We all face problems in health, money, wealth, relationships, fights, and all this. Right? There's a lot of things in common between us, no matter where we live in the world. Um, but can you understand that? Can you at least develop some understanding such that they don't feel like a total stranger? Their worldview is not an alien worldview, right? So those are my recommendations. I saw a comment that hey, there's some unlisted videos as well. So if you go to the playlist Figma config, you will find a bunch of unlisted videos in these playlists. So check it out, guys, if you want to see that. Okay. Those are my top picks for config stuff that you should watch. Okay. Now, let's come back to the interactive part, which is these questions. Mm, let me switch to Figma, Figjam. So I think some of these questions answered. Okay. Oh, industrial work. Bro, Jay, you got to watch the teenage engineering. That's hardcore product industrial design. Yeah. And maybe even the 3D printing one. Okay. Where do you see future of design, AI? Um, I'm going to talk about AI now. Okay. I know some of you have been patient with me. You guys want to know really more about AI. I'm going to show you that. Okay. And this is actually maybe a perfect place to start. Guys, this photo doesn't really kind of show what's happening. So let me delete it. Let me maybe show a different photo. So I actually got the chance to get into one of these self-driving cars. I don't have a proper video of it, but I'll just show you guys a photo. Now, self-driving cars, my surprises, and then I'll talk about what the experience was. Think of self-driving cars. We did one. Number one, all the self-driving Waymos are Jaguars, so that was interesting. Right, really nice car. Um, Something I expected was we'll be sitting in the car. It'll have no driver. There'll be some homeless guy who sees us, and then he's gonna come and break the window, and he's gonna be like, "You're taking away driver jobs. You're taking away driver jobs. Shame on you." Right? That's what I expected would happen. And then, of course, the car is a fucking robot. It's not gonna know what to do. It's gonna just stop because there's somebody in the camera view. That's what I expected to happen. But reality, okay. One more picture I'll bring up here. Another view, right? For you guys to see what it looks like compared to a normal car. So it's this kind of Jaguar SUV or something, and it's got cameras literally all over. So that's a camera, that's a camera, that's a camera. Every single edge in the front. This thing is constantly rotating, right? So like fast speed rotating. And there's even a screen on this which tells you thank you or walk in or welcome or like messages, right? So it's the UI that you see on that. It's like an LED thing. The most surprising thing about it, guys, was that it was the most boring ride I've ever taken in, maybe exaggerating, maybe not the most boring, but it was a boring ride. We sat in this car and it was boring as fuck. We sat there, it was like 15 minutes to our destination. 15 minutes later, we reached there. What does that tell you? What it told me is that that's how you know it works. Because if something happened, it would mean it didn't work. Like if something happened that was not supposed to, it would mean there is a problem with it. The fact that I'm sure people have negative experiences, like the thing I was saying, but the fact that it was the most boring thing ever means that it works. Because what do you want if you're ordering an Uber? You want the Uber to come without issues, find you where you are, AC chalna chahiye, they should drive you. You know, maybe you want them to not talk, maybe you want them to talk. In this case, you don't have a choice. You can talk only amongst yourself. I saw Kunal Shah's story on Instagram. I think he was there in SF the same time, and his story was the best car for introverts, and he's sitting in the back of one of these. But guys, that's how you know it works. And I see question: were you scared though? No, I was not. I was normal. I was bored. Nothing happened. But guys, that's how you know it works, because what you want from a taxi service, Waymo is an app just like Uber. What you want is for it to work without issues. And it did exactly that. And yes, there were stories of homeless people hitting on the thing I saw on Twitter or something. And that happens. But point being, no other city in the world can you experience this. I think it was cool. Um, I if I was there, I don't know how often I would do it. I don't know what to say. What if they remove the driver's seat and build something there? The door is locked and it cannot be unlocked, right? So even as a passenger, you cannot enter. So they've thought about that part, of course, while designing the experience. Now let's talk about AI. Okay. The perspective I want to give you guys today is I want you to imagine for a second there is this level right here, and then there is this level right here, right? And I've talked about this concept a little bit before, but not in the level of detail I'm about to show you now. Let's just call this point the ceiling, right? So the top, and let's call this the floor. And what I'm talking about right now, talking about AI. Okay, remove this. So imagine there's a ceiling and floor. What exactly is the ceiling? I want you to imagine a designer. So let's get some stickers. Let me visually help you. Um, let me make this interesting. Okay. So imagine there's a designer who is like literally top 1% in the world, right? So as an example, uh, people from 10K in the group chat in the 10K metaverse, I posted this link, and some of you on Twitter might have seen this. There is this guy who charged $90,000 for a website project. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Somebody seen this on Twitter? It was a kind of a conversation, and then maybe last week or something. Maybe I'll just show you a little bit, okay? I'll show you real quick. The website was hooli.io, and okay, VK knows what I'm talking about. Invincible knows what I'm talking about. This is the tweet. I want to make a point, okay? This will be important, trust me. Okay, I'm not able to open it. x.com. अरे भाई, let me show you the website though. You can look it up. Twitter पे it was a viral thread, but this website that you're seeing here, and let's wait for it to load. Taste, okay, taste. Normally, we're not gonna organically land on this website apne aap, right? Usually, think about this, guys, me included. Most of us spend our time on like 4 or 5 websites every single day, every single week, every month, right? YouTube, Twitter, एक दो बार Reddit खोल दिया. Maybe if there's a link to Substack, I'll open it and see it. But that's about it. Think about how walled off our experience is. There are hundreds and thousands of websites, and we visit 5, and the same 5 every day, every week. But nothing wrong with that. That's actually how it is today, right? You're not the exception. Like, even I do that, and I'm trying to change this habit. But you would never come across this website unless you are actively seeking out very high quality work, whether that's on Twitter or, let me give you one resource anyway. You guys know this? Godly.website. Probably one of the best, um, only the best of the best, right? They also say it. You will probably discover Julio over here and a bunch of others. But the point I'm making is this site, guys, the designer or the design team that worked on it, they charged $90,000 for this. $90,000, to just give you a quick conversion, is 75 lakhs. And this is a beautiful site. Okay, we'll just go through it together. So a lot of micro animations, right? Straight up text, not too distracting, unlike sometimes you see sites like that. Explaining these features, bento, so slightly on trend, yet very different looking. Using 3D in an interesting way, right? Using this motion and 3D to kind of show this concept, um, like in the office, right? So they're trying to help you visualize what it is. Okay. Very unique kind of interactions. Like, hey, I can drag this around. But this is the kind of stuff that bana to koi bhi sakta hai, but execution is killer, right? This is where the second one comes in. The second thing that I said, right? So thank you, Varsha, summarizing. Taste, craft, perspective. We spoke about taste. This is where craft comes in. Okay. We talk about taste. We spoke about perspectives also, right? Craft is, you can think of this, but can you execute this and make it work? I'll give you a simple way to understand. Something that is minimalist. So I would say the opposite of godly.website. Not opposite as in bad, but minimal, right? I think godly is a little bit more maximalist. The minimal gallery. Yeah. This is another one that I like. Oh, in fact, Hooli is on here, so maybe not so minimalist. But the thing is, when you're designing minimal, you have less elements, and so it's a little bit easier to make them work together. So, for example, the spacing between it, there are fewer elements, so you can easily keep track of everything. The hierarchy, the balance, and stuff. Fewer elements, the more minimal you are, the more easier for you to just kind of do it, right? You guys get that? Yeah. But the minute you start adding more elements, right? Maximalist, you're like, you want to make a very strong impression in every way possible. What happens is different elements don't work well with each other. Like one element might distract from the main point, right? Or too many unique ideas, and suddenly it feels like, oh man, like kachra not kachra, khichdi ban gayi side pe, right? Uh, this is a nice one. Thanks, Joy, for this reference. This is maybe more minimal than minimal, Dead simple sites. Okay, I'll just open the first one. Guys, this is so simple. And I love this. I just opened this and I already love it. I don't even know what they do. I love this site already. They've got their sketches of this robot. You know, it is watering this plant. So minimal. If you were designing this, couple of elements you need to do. Color, you need something close to white. Illustrations, you're using sketches, right? So you work with your industrial designer or whatever, and you say, hey, can you give me some of your sketches? Let's make some storyboards to help people visualize what it's like. And so you put them here. Even these, is just a simple kind of gradient, this masking kind of thing around it. And so two fonts, heading, this one, body, this one. Emphasis is given using the body font but smaller size. Same here. Links, just straight up underline. The color, this one is slightly lighter, this is darker. So there is some emphasis, what's a link and what's text. There's also some emphasis given here, and you can see the color difference. And that's it, guys. And then button, there's one button style, and it's basically text and icon. And they've used that same thing. Right? Very minimal site. Point is when you want to do something like Hooli, maximalist, um, things have to work together. And this is what brings me to craft. Craft is the level of डिटेल के अंदर डिटेल के अंदर डिटेल के अंदर डिटेल के अंदर it's a level of zoom ins that you do while understanding the elements or the what's relevant at each level, right? So for example, if you had to make something where there's a lot of things coming together, each has to work with the other, right? You can't have random styles just together. They have to work well together. And so to make that happen, you have to really really polish. Matlab, one section, right? The thing I said earlier on this call, which is as a designer, you're expected, you have a full time job, 7 hours a day you should be designing. Now, of course, realistically, let's say there's calls, conversations, 3 to 4 hours a day you should be designing. Yeah. Whether you are in a job or not, that's kind of normal. Now, this, when you're doing designing maximalist, this one section will probably take you a week. Maybe, I don't actually know. But the thing is, that's okay. You're being paid enough, and each section has to deliver. That's craft, guys, right? That's craft. The level of obsession you have with something that is a small detail, right? Steve Jobs has a quote around this. And basically, what it says is if you're painting a fence, make sure to paint behind the fence as well. Why? Why paint behind the fence? Nobody's going to see it. But you are going to see it. Nobody's going to see it, but you are going to see it. You will know that you didn't do it. You will know that you could have gone the whole way, but you went half the way. And do that enough times, and your standard drops. Your standard starts dropping. And the more your standard starts dropping, the harder it is to maintain good taste because you're compromising at every level. You're compromising in the smallest things, even in the biggest things. Makes sense, guys? So here's now, I think you guys understood this point. And the reason I went so hard on this is I really want you to understand this AI thing once and for all. Okay? Because this helped me understand it. So I think it'll help you too. There are outlier talents, right? In every field, not just UI, product design, UX, even in fashion. Not everybody can charge 800 euros for a hoodie, but the top 1% can. And they got there through very different ways. So in reality, the ceiling is usually way higher than you think, which is you might have something here, but all it takes is one person to figure out here. And now suddenly the ceiling goes even higher. To most of us, when we are starting out, we are here on the floor. And I'll explain what the floor is. But let's put one more. Let's put this one, right? When we're starting out, how do we start out? We look at this we look at sites like Hooli and we're like, wow, bro. I mean, other than the money alone, I want to make stuff like this. I want to make this kind of cool stuff. And if I get paid money, that's even more of a bonus. But till then, I want to do it just because it's so cool. It's way cooler than anything else I've seen. Right? You might feel that. Or if you're a fashion design student, you might be like, you know, I've had such a horrible time selling cheap clothes. Everything is so fast fashion. Screw fast fashion. My taste is high fashion, and I'm not going to compromise. Even if I can't afford it, I will make sure that I don't let my standards drop. Point being, all of us, when we get started, we don't look here, we look up. We are looking up at the stars. The stars here are top 1%. And guys, let me just be straight up. I am not top 1%, right? I am maybe, let's say, I will say top 5%, top 10%. But I clearly know, love straight up, I'm not going to live in delusion. There are people way better than me. And I look up to them. So do you, right? And this is just a level. So when you're on the floor, you can't see the ceiling. Where does AI come in? Now, before AI, before AI, imagine this ceiling, imagine this floor. There is also a middle point, which is this. What do you call this middle point, guys? What do you call this? I call this average. And here's the thing. Today, when we use the word average, it kind of feels like an insult or something like, bro, average kaise bula diya mujhe? No, no, no. Average is a very specific thing it means. Average means the middle point between the floor and the ceiling. Okay? What that means is anybody who's below the floor. So let's say you are a student who has just started learning Figma. You're not above the floor yet. You are exactly on the floor or maybe a little bit below it. But you start doing a little bit of it and now suddenly you're on the floor. You spend a month designing, okay, you're suddenly over here. Or, if you're really cracked, you're like, bro, designers are designing. You're telling me designers work 10 hours a day? Fuck, I want to work 10 hours a day because I love this so much. You might within 3 months, 4 months, immediately hit average. You might be like, wow, I feel like I'm at the average point. I still look up though, but I'm still at the average point. Now, here's what happens after AI. Duplicate this. So, if this is the scenario before AI, after AI, this top designers, right? And here's the thing, this is subjective. Top is subjective. Even the best designers, like you might look at, let's say, billionaire founders, right? Or $1 billion valuation founders in India. Of course, they look up to $1 billion founders in SF. Now, $1 billion founders in SF, they look up to the trillionaires. They look at Bezos. Bezos looks up to other people, right? So it's always a progressive thing. There's no end to this. After AI. So let's put a note here. So this is before AI and this is after AI. Now, after AI, what happens is this person, imagine is the Hooli, the person we just saw. They are like, whoa, I have mid journey. That means I can now do illustrations. I can do illustrations and I couldn't do illustrations before. Suddenly, their own personal ceiling goes up by 10 points. Okay. The other day, next day, they come across a tool and they're like, oh, wow, like I can generate 3D models. In the past I had to hire designers and I could not afford to hire another designer, but now I can do 3D myself. And so the level of things I'm going to do now onwards will be even crazier. The ceiling rises for them by another couple points, right? So you will notice the very experienced designers out there, they are loving AI. And this is the reason, because they have seen just in the last 2 years their ceiling rise more than it has in the years before that. And so they are like super excited about this. But what happens when the ceiling rises? What's happening to the floor? Now, on the floor, let's say somebody who was, we're talking AI and before and after. Imagine before Figma. Before Figma, if you had to learn how to design interfaces, you needed to learn Photoshop. So before Figma, the floor was much higher because Photoshop is much harder to learn than Figma, right? But now Figma, some of the updates they have, you can use kits easier. So now when you open a brand new Figma file, I don't think I've updated my Figma on this computer, but let's see if we get this. Let's say you're a newbie to Figma, right? You're opening a Figma file for the first time. Let's see if I can find this. You can now just go in here and be like, hey, yo, simple design system. And then you expand this. And oh my God, imagine you're a new designer and you heard about Figma 10 minutes ago and you found this and you're like, yo, landing page, let's fucking go right here. And like, okay, what else? What else? I want to do a shop page. Okay. And I want to create a shop for like Indian Balenciaga or something, right? Like a random idea. Guys, this what you're seeing here, it took me about 2 years to reach this stage. And this is not even that good. Actually, I'm exaggerating, not 2 years. It took me 6 months to reach this stage. And I didn't have Figma when I started. So in Photoshop, it took me 6 months to get this good. It took you maybe 6 seconds, less than 6 minutes to do this. Here's the thing though, in those 6 months, me trying to figure this out, I learned a lot because I had to do this from scratch. You doing this, you learned nothing. You learned that there's now a kids panel in the side. But you didn't learn why this layout is the way it is. You didn't learn why this spacing is 24. You didn't learn why, hey, what exactly is this element called? Oh, it's a footer, right? So people who had to learn through very difficulty, they typically learn better because, hey, like we learn when things are challenging. If things are easy, then we get bored with them. Okay. You guys making sense, right? Because I'm going to come back here. The floor is now much lower. Guys, the floor is way lower than it was. What does that mean? Which means somebody who's here who would have to spend 6 months to even reach this minimum. Me in 2011, me in 2012. 6 months it would take me to go from um, dot 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 like this, from here to here. Well, now the floor has come to meet you. You don't have to go there. The floor has come to you. What happens when the floor gets lowered like this? Now, suddenly, this is what happens, guys. I'll show you visually, okay? This is what happens when the floor gets lowered. Engineering students all over the world, all over India, see this and they're like, bhai, ye karte hain, bhai. Like, oh my God. Who wants to do lead code? Who wants to do DSA and algo? Let's do this. But guys, what's happening here? You see this? It might seem like the average is still staying the same. But here's the thing. Remember what I said earlier? The ceiling is way higher than you can imagine. Well, what another way you can imagine is a team of 10 designers, right? Imagine some startup in Bangalore, Series C, they have 10 designers. Suddenly they're like, okay, not 10, let's say 30. Let's make it a little big. 30 designers. Suddenly they're like, why? You know what? Like, per designer productivity has gone up because now they can also do these extra things and they're excited to do these extra things. They will have layoffs and they will realize that, hey, firstly, designers that don't have taste, designers that don't have craft, designers that don't have perspective, designers who are middle management, who are just like project managing, मतलब कुछ ना कुछ कर रहे थे. Suddenly, they're like, hey, we don't need these people anymore. Because, hey, why do we need them? This thing is better. So the ceiling goes crazy. And so this is a conversation I've had. And from when I spoke to design leaders at Config, this is what they told me. They said we are actually reducing our team sizes for these reasons. Number one, we are cutting out middle management. So if you are not into the craft of things, if you're just a manager, we are cutting you out, right? So middle management layers getting cut out. So compressing. And when that happens, there's a lot of these middle managers who are now looking for jobs as well. And they are also applying now to slightly below their, slightly junior, maybe than their expectations, right? So it gets more difficult now to get a job. But this average is now here, guys. Where is it? It's here. It might not look like a lot, but this is a significant jump. Like this average is now almost at the previous ceiling. The previous ceiling. And when I say previous ceiling, let's say 2015 की जो ceiling थी, what most people thought was the ceiling. I'm sure 2015 में also there were cracked people over here. The average today is the ceiling of last time, of a couple years ago. And the ceiling of today, what we think is killer design today, 10 years later, it's going to be average. But then, guys, is that surprising to you? Let me ask you. Let's take a small pause here. Is that surprising to you? Is that surprising to you guys? Because I'm going to show you a screenshot. I'm going to show you a screenshot. This is what Google, Yahoo, MSN, Apple, eBay, the search engines of the time, this is what they look like in 1999. Do you think a newbie made this? Do you think an average designer made this? You guys realize this was made by literally today's Silicon Valley designers? This was made by back then Silicon Valley designers. This was a revolution, right? When 1999, by the way. So websites had just started becoming visual, right? I think prior to 95, websites were text. And so now they were starting to become visual. Guys, this was the peak of web design in 99. Today, what is this? The peak, right? This was the ceiling back then. Today, this is the floor, guys. Imagine that. This ceiling, what was once the ceiling, is now the floor. But guys, it's also because it's been 25 years since this happened. It's 25 years since that happened. Obviously, ये तो होना ही था. So coming back here, you guys see what's happening? Because I'm going to give this a label, okay? This thing we were talking about. This is a phenomenon that's not new. It's kind of been happening all along throughout technology. It's the death of average. Today, you, me, we cannot afford to be average. And what that means is nobody wants to be average, of course. Nobody starts out saying, one day I hope I'm average. But when you start out, yeah, average is also difficult to hit. Death of average means even if you're good today, you will one day become average. And that one day might come sooner than you expect. Designers today with 15 years of experience, they're getting fired. Why? It's because they were middle managers. Why were they middle managers? They were probably good at it, but they chose not to improve their taste. So they are now stuck in the past. They're like, अरे हमें वैसे बनाना चाहिए, हमें वैसे बनाना चाहिए. भाई अब we've moved on. वैसे नहीं बनते अब websites. They don't have, they've not upgraded their taste. They've not upgraded their craft, right? Maybe they spent 10 years designing in Photoshop and so they never bothered switching. There are designers today who are still work in Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, they make websites. It's a small subset, but it exists. They've not up leveled their craft. And number three, perspective. I know this is scary, but wouldn't you rather face the scary truth than avoid it and it sneaks up on you later? So let me also put down these three things. Taste, craft, perspective. Oof. We're almost at the 2 hour mark, guys. Let me read some chats, okay? Because I've been away from chats a little bit. I mean, I'm reading it, but not feeling a general stagnation and uninspiring vibe and design in general makes me think it's lower now. But that's just me noise that I think about it. VK, the thing is, the core is, and I fell for this as well, by the way, which is I forgot that Godly website existed. I forgot that, bro, when I was in housing.com, 55 designers at its peak, 2015 May, 55 designers, big deal, right? You know, most designers, when I would come up with like I would try to look at their screens and be like, kya kar rahe hain? What are they working on? Matlab, can I watch? Maybe some interesting tricks or something that they know. And you know what I found? I found that those designers were spending at least 2 to 3 hours per day just scrolling Dribble. And not just Dribble. Dribble, Muesli, I think was around back then, maybe not. They were they were different inspiration sites today. Today it's like Godly and all of these. Bro, I'm like, you guys really spending 2 to 3 hours per day just browsing inspiration? Is that really worth it? And I realized these guys are working on their taste like athletes. To them, working on taste is an athlete level obsession. And so I was blown away. I was like, shit, maybe I was not obsessed enough. Maybe I need to be more obsessed. Um, so my suggestion, VK, definitely godly website should be your kind of maybe you can make it your default tab or something. And don't just browse Godly Pay. Open other websites, right? The thing I said earlier, which is most of us, we spend 90% of our online time, and I'm not counting apps, website. Firstly, we spend more time on phones, and so anyway, we can browse less. But even desktop time, we spend 90% of times on the same 4 5 sites that non-designers work on, spend time on. Same 4 5 sites that consumers spend time on. That's not good. You need to find rare resources. And people should come to you and be like, Bhai, how do you find all this? मतलब बता दे. And you'll be like, क्या बताऊँ मैं? मतलब like, I've done all this, मतलब put on all this effort. And it's not even effort, right? We're browsing. So क्या effort है? But it's immersion. You can't help but absorb it. And the next time you're designing something, you'll be like, oh yeah, I mean, fuck, I've browsed 1,000 sites just without knowing it, and now suddenly I know, yes, I should do this kind of thing, I should do this. And so suddenly patterns make more sense to you. um, and since you're, you know, taking an AI example, your training data your training data is so big now that as a natural intelligence, you're just producing more, and you're producing outputs that are unique, that nobody else has. And people are like, wow, where does he come up with this? Where does she come up with this? That's taste, guys. Question from Hardik, good one, by the way. How do we go from Figma user to designer? So let's look at this from I've already said this, but I'll say it again. Let's look at this perspective of somebody who's already a designer, right? Maybe not me, but let's look at somebody who's working in a company, or even me, for example, or somebody, maybe a friend of yours who's a full-time product designer, and you're like, bro, they are not a Figma user. Like, they're a designer. I've seen them work. Like, they're fucking crazy. How I want to be like that. How do we get there? What you have to realize is you have to put in the hours, and it's non-negotiable, right? Companies are hiring people for craft. What does that mean? It means they want people to be hands on. They don't want bato meetings wale log. They don't want just people manage. They want people who are making stuff like craft, right? And so what does that mean? It means in the same way that somebody who's like who's a jet fighter or someone, for them to be in a jet fight, to be in a plane that costs $1 million, $10 million, they have to first put in hours in a simulator, right? So in a flight simulator. And I don't know if you know this, like, I think there's a certain requirement. You have to have 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours in a flight simulator to even be able to step into a cockpit and just be a co-pilot, right? Why is that? It's because they have to put in those hours in a simulated environment, not in a plane, to prove that they can be trusted with the responsibility of being in a plane. Now you might be wondering, is it that serious? Like, I mean, it is that serious, guys. You want to work at Razorpay, you want to work at Urban Company, you want to work at, some of these design teams that you look forward to. You want to work at Zepto, Swiggy. Like, I'm just taking these terms because everybody knows them. You want to work at these crazy companies, guys. It's a responsibility. You think they're going to let some Figma user come and change something in the Swiggy app, the smallest thing in the Swiggy app? Haath nahi lagane de wo. Right? Designers are very protective. And so to be able to prove to people that you have that, you can do it, you need simulator time. And so what is simulator time? Of course, folks who are enrolled in 10K, that's one type of simulator time. Okay. Besides that, working on concept projects, right? So the point I said, that flight hours, I like visualizations. So let's jump to Figma. A designer employed in the industry today, right? Whether it's a freelance, whether they do freelance, they have their agency, full time, intern B, right? Designer employed in the industry today spends 7 hours a day designing. That's 40 hours a week. That's 160 hours a month. And guys, you think these numbers? I am also not sure if this is the real number, because I know designers work. I know a lot of startups, they work way more than this, right? So let's just make this look a little neat. Realistically, though, spends 12 hours a day working. And again, out of these 12 hours, I would say at least 50% is Figma, at least 50%, right? So 3 hours a day, 6 hours a day. That's 12 into 5. So 60 hours per week, 240 hours per month. तो पहला क्वेश्चन है, ब्रो, दम है तुम में? क्या तुम्हें दम है इतना इतना डिजाइन करने का? Because most people, we are when you start out, we are amateurs, right? A Figma user, it's an amateur. You can, maybe in your whole, if you're starting out, maybe in your whole life you spend only 40 hours in Figma. A designer does that on a normal week. And so how do you go for Figma? You have to spend in hours. You have to spend hours designing, right? So The reason I show you this is, let's do a calculation now. Let's assume you are a student working somewhere else, don't have the time yet to design a lot, but are interested, right? I'm assuming a lot of us, a lot of you guys who are early are kind of here. Step one, I would say for you guys, would be um, turn interested interest into obsession. Now I know बोलने की बात है, मतलब क्या होता है exactly? You have to figure that out. But turn interest into obsession, because somebody who's obsessed will always beat somebody who is interested. You know. And guys, the bar for being interested is so low these days. Like floor, right? People type interested on a LinkedIn post जहाँ पे एक notion template मिल रही है, मतलब ये कोई बात हुई? That's what interest is. That's how low commitment it is to be interested in something. So number one, I say turn it into obsession, right? I understand you can't be 100% obsessed. You're still early, and it takes a lot of energy, by the way, to do this. But it's possible, right? So don't forget that you have to do this. Like push towards it little by little. Step two, reclaim your hours so you can channel them into designing. What do I mean by reclaim? Which is hours, so we have the same, right? Whether it's this or whether it's not. Hours are the same, but they're spent doing something else. Something else might mean you have to report to somebody, maybe you have to attend college and all this. It could also mean, fuck, boy, I wasn't serious enough. Like, I really have to stop smoking up or something like something. And you have to sacrifice something to get them back. So, step two is reclaim your hours so that you can channel it. And then step three is try to, and I say try to work the same amount of hours as an average designer employed in the industry today. And guys, I said average because if you're just starting out, even average is quite high, right? So even somebody who is average is spending this much time designing. In fact, somebody who's average probably is spending this much time because they have to work even harder because the expectation on them must be quite high. Finally, step four, figure out how you can get paid for some or most of these hours, right? Maybe self explanatory. But once you reach step three and you're like, hey, I mean, I still have a full time job, but in a week, I'm doing a solid 10 to 20 hours of designing. And by the way, starting out, you're not going to have meetings. So maybe 90% of your time, actually not 90, 70% of your time will be in Figma. 30% will be in a notebook or something like that, thinking about planning in your head, you know, just putting things out. Once you're at step three, the immediate next step for you, once you reach a respectable amount of hours, you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to fly a plane now. Chota plane ho, but I'm ready to fly a plane, even if it's a small one. You got to figure out how you can get paid for some or most of these hours. Typo. Okay, so that might mean your chachu, your mama says, "Bhai website bana de mere liye, ek ye aa raha hai, wo." So you're like, okay, and you're like, okay, a website will probably take me 5 hours, 10 hours to make. Anyway, I was spending that time doing stuff on my own, designing. Okay, wow, I'm gonna get paid for that. Right? Ask your chachu mama to pay you though. And you're like, wow, I'm getting paid for that. Or if you are actually putting in even these 10, 20 hours, you might be like, hey, like I should start publishing this, because initially I was not happy with my work. Maybe I was like, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. But eventually you will make one thing which you're like, oh, this is good. Oh wow, like this is maybe the best thing I've made. And you will want to, probably naturally, you will want to post it. And when you post it, people will see it. You post it enough times, more people see it. And that's how you get inbound leads. And at this point, you're not a professional freelancer, but somebody who's out there looking for help, they're going to reach out to you because they're like, "Dikhta hai ye. This person is visible. They do the work." And so I think because they're like kind of confident they're doing their thing. I think I'm gonna give them a shot. I think I'm gonna let them do this one small thing for me, even if they fail. अरे क्या ही हो गया, मतलब मुझे तो कॉन्फिडेंस है, कर लेगा और कर लेगी. Okay, guys, makes sense. So that's where you want to be. Um, Real quick, I'll link something here as well. I think these videos talk about exactly this. I know the title is a little bit clickbait type thing, but this is exactly the process or concept that I'm describing in these videos. Step 5 maybe is the game, play the game, this online game of finding alpha, finding things online. Okay. Um, this video, see, this internships one, actually, I might have to revisit because I don't remember what exactly I said in this, but maybe I think internships today are harder to get than they were a little bit in the past. And again, why? The floor has gone up, right? Pehle, you could be here. Pehle, you could get. Is there something wrong with this analogy? So let's see. As an intern, maybe. So as an intern, you're expected to roughly be average. Expectation as an intern is, bro, minimum you be average. But every once in a while, give me something just mein maza aa jaye, bro. Every once in a while, give me something that is, oh my God, like, how do you do that? That's crazy, bro. Do more like this, right? As an intern, you want to be somewhere here, but every once in a while, you're making like some crazy stuff that surprises you also. On a side note, your portfolio should have an honest look at your portfolio, guys. Those of you who have it, who are looking for opportunities, is most of the stuff in your portfolio average? Because you need one or two or a few things that make it feel like, bro, this person, maybe they're not average. Like a design, somebody who's hiring should look at your portfolio and be like, fuck, bro, like, how has nobody hired this person yet? Matlab, even though they have this much experience, ye bana kaise diya? Like, that's so crazy. ठीक है, I can see that not all of their stuff is good, but ye kaise bana diya? Like, clearly there's something going on, right? So, um, average is a painful place to be, right? And unfortunately, actually not unfortunately, it's just the truth. Most conversation, like the definition of average itself is that most people are here, right? People are not designers, are below floor. But most people who are starting out, probably at average or below. Maybe once in their life they had this feeling of making something crazy, and now it keeps them going, right? In fact, um, you guys probably know this thing. I'll put the link here. If you are here, or let's say you are here and you want to be here, there is a gap in between. There's a gap that you need to. You guys probably know where I'm going with this. The gap. Okay. Check this out. I think you will guys will find this quite motivating. This talks about taste. Okay. Which is, I think, kind of core to a little bit what we talked about today. Taste. But it talks about all of us, we are born with good taste. Actually, we're not born with good taste, but at some point we have good taste and we're like, fuck, how do we? I know I'm not there. And so now there's a gap. So watch this. Okay. Midwit meme. Yeah, actually. Let me put that here. So, guys, we're going to wrap up in a while. I think maybe the longest live session we've done in a while. सबसे ज़्यादा ट्रबल, सबसे ज़्यादा एआई किसको चुभता है? इसको, ये बंदे को। रो क्यों रहा है ये? Because bro, it's painful. It's painful being here. रो रहा है because it's painful, and I really empathize because I was here as well. And here's the thing, not I was here. There's a lot of skills in my life where I'm still over here, but I don't, and I cry about it sometimes, like, you know, um, literally, metaphorically, whatever. But point being, average is not a good place to be, guys. Death of average happening, been happening. Yeah. So once again, guys, this Figjam is available. Okay, I've put it in the um, put this here. I have put this Figjam in the um, comments. It's a pinned video, pinned comment. What does productivity mean for you? Good question, Nagarjun. For me, productivity means producing. The word productivity has the word produce in it. So a lot of times, even if I've worked the whole day, but I've not actually made something, I sometimes feel not productive. And I think it's because I've not produced anything. So for me, productivity means producing. But zooming one step before that, to me, productivity means having the energy also to produce. And energy means what? Right? Like motivation. It means other people are doing things, so you're motivated by other people. Because it's difficult to generate your own motivation sometimes. So other people motivate you. Productivity for me also means like eating healthy, eating well, right? Like all of that, because that affects my energy levels, and my energy levels affect what I produce. I like the athlete metaphor for this, because athletes, they take that training very seriously, right? To an athlete, it's not just the time they spend on field that matters. It's the time they're not on field that 100% has control of what happens on field, right? Whether you call that practice, whether you call that lifestyle. Um, yeah. So, guys, I think this question answered. Rishikesh, AI wala. Future, where do I see it heading? Ceiling increases, floor increases, average mat bho, bro. Be allergic to average. I'm, I don't want to be average. I am average, by the way, in a lot of fields. And I realized that, you know how? I realized that going to SF. Because यहाँ पे Copenhagen में बैठ के मैं I realized I got a little bit too comfortable. And this is not exactly to do with design. Um, although it's like it's kind of everything. I'm refreshed, guys. I'm so refreshed after this trip. I did not expect this. I was like, क्या ही होगा? मतलब, you know, I'm quite refreshed. And I realized after speaking to so many heads of design, I spoke to not just Indian heads of design, I spoke to a lot of um, people at crazy companies. And I it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I think I'm average at. And I had to really ask myself this question: am I okay being average at it? Because some things the answer was yes. I don't care about it, so I'm okay being average at some things. But the everything else, I was like, wow, that's very difficult. I'm not able to swallow the fact कि bro मैं average हूँ उस चीज में. Like चुभ रही है मुझे, right? That it's that way. And so I'm really energized um, because of that. And I'll just post one final screenshot here, okay? Not this. Final couple minutes, guys. We'll wrap up, okay? Which also means final couple comments. My wallpaper right now is this, what I'm about to show you. This is my current wallpaper. Aja. No, not happening. Give me one sec, guys. I'm doing some crazy Apple maneuvers from MacBook to iMac, dragging from across side to side. Um, I think I got it. You know what? I'll just show you on my computer. Let me go on my Insta. Don't ask me to log in now. Array. So guys, just go watch my story, okay? I'll add the screenshot to Figjam shortly, okay? But I just want you guys to go see my story because I think that wraps up my mood and how I'm thinking about things. Anticlimactic to end as on a technical error. So let me try once more. हो गया. Here we go. Maybe it's a little bit too personal. Maybe I'll delete it um, from the Figma file later. But just check this out, guys. Okay, I've just put it for a sec there, but okay, हो गया. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me on this very long stream. More than anything, I hope you guys found it useful. Right, useful is what I'm aiming for. I don't do these for myself. I kind of do this. Actually, I do it for myself so I can talk about it and discuss. But I also do it so that 10K members, right? Past members, current active members, so that you guys get some interesting ideas to think about. Maybe some of your own struggles or blockers um, are reduced a little bit in the process, right? Yeah, I should do this. I'm gonna get this. Problem is, I'm actually using my iPhone as the camera right now. Otherwise, मैं ऐसे ही दिखा देता कैमरा के साथ. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, VK. Thank you for joining the session. Crazy stream. Thank you, bro. Little scared as a beginner, but also curious to learn. Amazing. Follow that curiosity. Follow the curiosity. And folks, if you're in cohort 9 right now, applications are closed by the way, so I'm not going to sell anything. Um, but if you're in cohort 9, you guys are going to have a killer cohort because I'm bringing this energy like boom. Okay. And those of you who are not in the active cohort, maybe are in past alumni, you can also expect something interesting, right? We've got the DIR program that you guys know about. Where we're in the process of redesigning and we're going to relaunch it, not publicly, but internally. in the next maybe 1 or 2 weeks. So for you guys as well, something interesting coming up on the way. Refreshing as fuck. Thank you. Thank you for attending, bro. Link for DIR, it's cooking. It's cooking right now. So in 1 or 2 weeks, we should have it. Internally, I'll share it, of course. Um, thanks, guys. Take this forward, okay? Don't let this end today. This energy and this thing, like push it forward. Question from Madhur, okay? Good one. What is success to you? To me, success is meeting my standards 90% of the time. Forget the 90%. To me, success is meeting my standards and exceeding them and not having to compromise. That's the abstract way I'll say it, right? Now apply that to money. There is a standard we have when it comes to money, right? We want to make this much. And so, but if we can't realistically reach it, we a little bit compromise. And I do that too, compromise and all sorts of things, but I don't want to compromise often. I want to compromise as less as possible and I want to meet my standards. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean 100 million in the bank necessarily, but jitne bhi million hai, mera number, wo standard I need to meet. Even if the rest of the world looks at that and be like, bro, that's a small number. Why don't you aim for a billion? No, no, no. Billion is somebody else's standard. My standard is not a billion, right? Not yet. So that is the thing. And how to do that? How to meet your standard? Try not to compromise. Try not to compromise on your health, sleep, all that, of course. But try not to compromise and like, don't spend time doing things you don't want to do. And this time that you do spend doing the things you do want to do, don't do average, do best, do great, right? Good gets you hired sometimes, but great gets you hired all the time, right? So even if you do good, you need great. If you're good, I'm glad you reached there, but let's go to great. Yeah. Cool, guys. Chalo. It's been a nice one. I'll see you all um, on a live session, on a YouTube video, or just somewhere else on the internet. Thanks, guys. See you, and bye bye.